Winter is the beginning, the long days and nights of the hunger moon. The life cycle of all animals in the wild depend on how they survive the brutal winters that put all creatures through a grueling test of endurance. Winter is the grim time of survival. It is nature's test of the fittest, whose young will be strong enough to survive future winters here in the Rocky Mountains. The coyotes, moving in packs, feeding on the carcass of a winter-killed moose. The Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep have traveled long distances from remote, high summer ranges to find places where the snow is blown clear so they can dig for grasses and herbs to eat. The bighorn can survive in temperatures of 75 degrees below zero. The grizzlies heading for the den in the long winter's sleep. The elk, the deer, the moose, the little birds that do not migrate. Each day when Tommy and I went out, we would see them in the snow or sense that they were there.
How long do you think till we'll see some rams?
Oh, about another 3 hours of snowshoeing. We should be within good glancing distance of them anyway.
What are these tracks here, Tommy?
Those tracks are a moose going through.
This?
It's pretty old, hard to tell. It could be a caribou. There's caribou up in here.
Yeah?
And they work on those wind-blown slopes. See those little tracks running along there? That's coyote. They come up quite high now. They do quite well in the country. There's a lot of wolves in here this year. They're moving in and working on the game in the valley, which is a good thing, John. It's the old balance wheel of nature. John, if we hurry up over to this point, we should cut those sheep off in the next pass. Country up there, John.
Oh, boy.
There they were, and it was a thrilling sight. Wow, a tremendous sound of their horns clashing in the great stillness. It was the sound of authority as solid as the rock they battled on.
I think the biggest concern I ever had was I got snowblind once in camp. I knew that night when I come in I'd burnt my eyes. And it was my own fault. It was a bright, hazy day.
Yeah?
I got to camp that night and I knew that I wouldn't be able to see the next morning, so... And I felt I was there for 6 days.
Is that right? And you were blind the whole time? It's cold! How long have you had this thing, Tommy?
Well, we picked it up last spring up on the hill. It's an old ram that starved to death out there.
The skull of a ram tells a complete story all its own. As Tommy and I sat there in the cabin, in out of the cold, we read the story in the bone. We were able to slide the horn curl off the horn core, which is an extension of the frontal sinus. In the ram's anatomy, they have grown out and they support the horn. Inside the core is a network of reinforcing plates like those in a bridge. And these are set along the axis of stress in a remarkable fashion. all the stress lines going from the horn down to the center of the skull. A glue-like membrane holds the horn right to the core during a ram's life. We also could see at the back of the skull the remains of the nuchal tendon, that is similar to our own anatomy, that attaches the skull to the vertebrae. But in the bighorn ram, it is much wider and stronger, like a great elastic shock absorber. And when the rams hit, the head is driven to the chest and the blow is absorbed by this rubbery tendon in the back of the skull. This prevents the ram from breaking his neck in battle. The first age ring at the end of the horn was formed in the rutting or mating season after the second summer.
Is that one or is that two there? This...
Well, yeah, this has been broomed off. They started off on two here because he's broomed his lamb tips off. You start on there as one and then count them, John. So you can see those lines.
So this 2, 3...
Distinct lines here.
Yeah, 4, 5...
By counting the dark rings, we knew he had lived 13 years. And this was longer than average. For half the rams die at about 11 years.
That's right.
16 is an extraordinary long life.
Yeah, just bang those together and just hear the noise. And that's just what they sound like when they hit. Well, it's a little more...
Hello, I'm John Denver. I was raised in Texas, but I live now in Aspen, Colorado, and I love the Rocky Mountains. This is part of a story that began with my friend Tommy Tompkins. Tommy left the concrete jungle of the city and a tour of duty with the police department there to return to the mountains. We first met and began our travels in the springtime, and I think by the time we finally caught up with the bighorn, we had covered more ground than Lewis and Clark. Tom, easy there. I want to see how this guitar is doing.
Oh, it had a little rough ride, but I think it'll be all right, John.
Well...
Here, I'll take that over here.
Slip that in.
How is it, all right?
Oh, yeah, it'll be okay. It's all right, fine.
Good.
Pull that tight over there.
Yeah, I'll cinch her down here.
I've only done a little hunting in my life. That was a long time ago. And all I had that spring morning when Tommy Tompkins and I started out across the Rockies was my guitar, my field glasses, and my camera. But the anticipation for me was just as high as any hunt could be. It was the surprise and the unexpected sight of animals and the great country that I looked forward to.
Well, this is the spring, John.
Oh, it's really nice early like this.
Yeah, the birds are just coming back. The trees haven't leafed out yet.
These are poplar?
Yeah. Common name.
Like our aspen trees.
Aspen. You can see some of these little springs in here that are just actually from the melting snow. The snow hasn't been too long out of this area. But this is great wintering ground for moose and elk. Sheep pass through here, but they don't stick around in this part of the country.
He was born in the summer of his 27th year, coming home to a place he'd never been before. He left yesterday behind him. You might say he was born again. You might say he found the key for every door. When he first came to the mountains, his life was far away, on the road and hanging by a song. But the string's already broken and he doesn't really care. It keeps changing fast and it don't last for long. And the Colorado Rocky Mountain High, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High. Now his life is full of wonder, but his heart still knows some fear of a simple thing he cannot comprehend. While they try to tear the mountains down to bring in a couple more people, more scars upon the land. In the Colorado Rocky Mountain High, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. I know he'd be a poorer man if he never saw an eagle fly. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado, Rocky Mountain High. I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. Friends around the campfire and everybody's high. Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High. In the beginning, the American wilderness was something to be pushed back, cut down, fenced in, and tamed and conquered. To the first settlers, the woods were the forest primeval, a territory of the devil and frightening people that they didn't know or understand and called savages. They began to change the face of the land. This was their struggle, and in the end, their triumph. The first Americans, the Indians, had a very different attitude towards the land. They respected it deeply, understood its ways, and saw themselves to be as much a part of it as the animals and the mountains and rivers. It was something to live with, not to conquer. The white man wanted to assert himself and leave his mark by the changes he made. But it was the Indian's way to pass through a country without disturbing anything, to pass and leave no trace, like fish through water or birds through the air. The bridge builders conquered the continent. The Indian way was destined to defeat. In the 100 years from 1850 to 1950, we shaped nature to our purposes. I was interested to trace the conflict of expansion and conservation, of economic growth and our wilderness, to see how it involves the sacrifice of one good to another. Looking at our past, we can see wild country as both asset and enemy. As a young person, building my own house and starting my own family, I wondered if the values which helped build America are also destroying it. What happens to the frontier spirit when the frontier is gone? The issues are not simple ones. Voiced over the years, the writings of Thoreau, the paintings of the Hudson River School, the drawings by Catlin of the Indians, the government began to answer the voices. In 1872, U.S. Grant signed the bill which created Yellowstone Park, the world's first example of large-scale preservation. In 1885, New York created 715,000 acres in the Adirondacks. Thanks to people like John Muir and President Theodore Roosevelt, the conservation spirit grew. Roosevelt believed that man was going soft and that only contact with the wilderness could ensure the preservation of American greatness. The American people are the people we are because we have had the influence of the wilderness on our lives. And we are a great people because we have been so successful in developing and using our marvelous natural resources. In the late 40s and 50s, we were so busy growing and achieving that we needed yet another voice to remind us. Rachel Carson published her book, The Silent Spring, and no one knew the enormous impact her writing would have. ecology became a significant idea for young Americans, and we began to face the deadly crisis of the natural environment. It's a song, Tommy, that but I really wonder if people know what it means anymore. You'll recognize the song. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesties, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. I really love that song.
That's really nice.
Well, you know, it's not the United States, it's not Canada, it's not Mexico, it's America. It's this part of the world. And I don't hear very many people sing that song anymore.
They're all the same people. A mixture of every nationality in the world.
Wrote a song once about finding a place to live, a place to lay down and die, you know, whenever that time comes around. This would be a pretty nice place to close your eyes, you know. Last time you close your eyes, I'd like to be laying by a river looking up at the stars with mountains around.
Yeah.
Nice way to go to sleep, huh?
That's the only place to go to sleep.
Oh, wow.
Really.
We're not going too far on this raft, maybe about 25 miles down the river.
There's a couple of dangers on the rivers that I've always encountered, and that was if there's a crosswind blowing across your valley, you can't hear the rapids ahead. And there's no control. Once the river speeds up, it trawls. You wind up in the middle of that trough.
Yeah.
And it can be a one-way ride.
Ooh.
Those are two dangers. There's crosswinds on the river, not knowing your country.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest this raft building to kids, you know, because they all get an idea of getting out and being some Robinson Crusoe and down the river on a raft or something.
Clear blue sky, brightly shining sun. Ooh. Oh, love. Tommy, there's some sheep. Goats.
Yeah, that's some of the Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. There's ewes and lambs coming down in there. There's a mineral lick in that rock bluff. That's as nice a mountain goat as you'll ever want to see. But they don't come down so much. It's only at this early spring.
He's looking right at us. That's such a... Look at that guy.
A very powerful animal. They have powerful leg muscles. They can go straight up. If you look up there a little farther, you can see some sheep. Is he coming out there now? Here he comes.
Wow, Tommy, those horns look really, really sharp.
They look like black ebony daggers, and they use those. That's their defense weapon. And when you see two goat fight, generally it's one or the other die, and many times both of them die. They tip their head down with those black ebony spikes, and they'll drive them in right into the hams of the other goat or into the stomach, and they'll just twist their head back with a sharp reef backwards, and they'll tear out the insides of the other goat. They fight terribly vicious.
Well, the bighorn sheep, when they clash, that's a completely different thing.
Oh, yeah, it's a different fight completely. They don't use their horns for piercing like the goat does. Bighorn sheep will come in there sometimes and hit heads, but they don't get down to kill each other. Goat fights are generally to the death.
And oh, I love the life within me.
Well, I'll just keep
Feel
on
a
working
part. of everything I see. Oh, I love life around me. Boy, there sure is a lot of life here, too. Gee.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get you to sing about 4 of those songs when we're going down the river on one of those silent drifts.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
See that ice on that glacier is 400 and 500 feet thick.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Oh, it's great up there, John. It's quite a hike. This is a great way to travel, John. It's a silent way. I've drifted these rivers. These mountain streams are more dangerous because they are unpredictable. You can come around the corner and you can hit a rock canyon, and
Yeah.
that's why I leave these 2 ropes tied here on the front that I can bail for shore with a loose rope
Okay.
when she hits the bank.
Grab one and jump?
Yeah.
Well,
And but I'll call the signal on that. And when we get going fast, you may have to duck down on the raft and just hang on.
I'm watching you.
But we just pull out of this channel. Then we're in the stream.
Ready?
In deep water, this is the only thing you got for guidance. That's good.
Open up your eyes and see the brand new day. A clear blue sky and brightly shining sun. Open up your ears and hear the breezes say, everything that's cold and gray is gone. Open up your hands and feel the rain come down. Taste the wind and smell the flowers' sweet perfume. Open up your heart and let the light come in. The earth has been reborn and life goes on. And do you care what's happening around you? Do your senses know the changes when they come? Do you see yourself reflected in the seasons? Can you understand the need to carry on? Riding on the tapestry of all there is to see, so many ways and oh so many things, rejoicing in the differences. There's no one just like me, yet as different as we are, we're still the same. And oh, I love the life within me. I feel a part of everything I see. And oh, I love the life around me. A When I think back to those beautiful days in springtime with Tommy in the Canadian Rockies, seeing the bighorn ewes with their lambs, the mountain goat and their young, the elk and the moose and the mule deer, I remember how I began to accept all the animals in the wilderness as being part of every hillside. It got to the point, the love that I felt for them was so much that when I didn't see them, it was sort of like empty scenery. The bighorn rams were too high to see in the summer, but Tommy had told me stories about their great battles that we would see in the wintertime. The one thing that I really hoped I would get a chance to see was a grizzly bear. For our first historic meeting, I thought I'd get ready, and I wrote a little song about him. How do you say hello to a grizzly bear? You think he'll understand me, or will he even care? And what if he doesn't like me because of my long hair? Hello, goodbye, so long, leave me alone, Mr. Grizzly Bear, Mr. Grizzly Bear, Mr. Grizzly Bear. Boom, boom. Hello, goodbye, so long, leave me alone, please, Mr. Grizzly Bear, Mr. Grizzly Bear, Mr. Grizzly Bear. Boom, boom.
Make sure your feet land level on these rocks so you twist an ankle.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the old dry canyon.
Yeah.
See how the water whirled and you saw those pots, holes in the water? That's where a few rocks get into a low spot,
Yeah.
and the current starts swinging them and they grind those holes.
Oh, and the rock does that, huh?
The rock does that, yeah. Continue grinding. Here, and find a half a dozen nice rainbow trout traps in these holes.
Is that right?
Yeah? And this is this natural log jam.
That's really something.
Yeah, that
I
river
think.
changed course.
Yeah.
Natural dam.
Look at that.
And it's these slides that are cleared off
Yeah.
where the first green vegetation comes, and that's why the bears hang out on these slides.
I see.
Oh, take a look up there, just up past this snow slide. And this is good grizzly bear country, and it's proved right. Look there on the right-hand side of that rock. See, now get your glasses up. And on the right-hand side of that gray rock, up there, just past to the left of the side of that snow. You see that bear there?
Yes, I do. Look, God.
You see that? And there's the two little ones beside it?
Yeah.
Well,
Look at that.
that's a grizzly, and they're dark. Now, see that other dark one in the bush behind it? That's the boar. There are 4 dark bears right there.
Oh,
And the boar, it's breeding season, you see.
yeah.
And they're mating now. Those young cubs are 3 years old. You'd think they were full-grown bears, wouldn't you? You just watch it. Oh, and look up above. There's 3 more light-colored ones. That's a sow and 2 cubs.
Look at
See
that.
up- Yeah? Now watch that. Now, this is something wrong here because one of these bears are going to have to move out. See, those bears are found out. They're sniffing. See that one sniffing the wind there?
they found out they're in somebody else's territory,
Yeah.
or they found out that somebody else is in their territory. Now, we'll see which bunch move out of there.
Okay.
But just sit real quiet and watch this. The wind conditions are right for us.
Right, right.
Oh, you see those four dark ones out
Look at
there?
that.
They're moving off into the timber. This
Uh-huh.
isn't their territory. The old sow's just staying there in front of her cubs up above, those three. Now these four are moving off. They're gone into the timber.
I remember reading some time ago that scientists claim the grizzly bear is second only to the chimpanzee in intelligence of all the animals in the world. It's really something to me.
Yeah. Look at that. What is that?
It's a cow moose and a calf. Calf's just about
Look at that.
maybe 3 days old at the most.
Look at That's the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
Now
Look at.
that's just sitting duck for those four bear that went into the bush.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. That silly old cow, she'll challenge anything to defend that little calf.
Oh, wow.
But that poor little guy, you feel sorry for him. He's so awkward.
You see it? I can't run. I can't hardly stand up.
No. See those two cub bear now?
That's
They've
right.
lost their mother. She's hiding in the buckbrush.
Yeah.
Till these guys leave her. She's standing in there somewhere. We
Yeah.
can't see her now. You see them standing up?
Yeah, look at that. They don't look like cubs to me.
Well, they'd be about 200 pounds, I guess.
Yeah, how big do those bear get?
About 700 pounds. And you think, when the cubs are born, John, they weigh 1 pound.
1 pound.
1 pound.
Is that
Sometimes less than a pound. And there they lay in the den, and she boots out these big fat fellows that are
Yeah.
running around with them out. She kicks them out.
right? Yeah.
And that is
And
the most dangerous bear of all, is those young ones when they get kicked out.
There are 10 different races of North American mountain sheep, 4 of which are best known: the desert bighorn, the Rocky Mountain bighorn, the black stone sheep of northern British Columbia, and here the all-white Dall sheep of Alaska. The Dall sheep, named for the scientist, roam in large bands on mountain slopes in sight of the huge glacier. This happy sight in late June in the Yukon are the newborn lambs, just a few days old, taking their first steps and learning their first lesson of where to go and where not to go. The Stones and Dall sheep are known as thin-horn sheep because their horn size and shape is so different than the bighorn, and their range and number in the last 50 years has not changed drastically. The bighorns has. The desert bighorn, which once occupied a large area of southwestern United States down into Mexico, has dwindled and is endangered. The Rocky Mountain bighorn is not in trouble in Canada because of the wide protection of the animal in the national parks, but it is in trouble in California, Colorado, Utah, and other areas in the states. And during my travels through the Rockies, I learned why.
I can see them from here. You see them on the right?
Yeah, I do. There's some, sure.
It's on that bare ridge where the wind's blowing all the snow off there.
Yeah?
So we'll be going right up through there and over that next mountain.
I can't see any rams up there, though.
Well, rams are just on their way in now. It's just mating.
Think we'll see a fight today?
Well, quite possible.
Oh, wow.
They start battling, and that's something that very few people see, and it is just tremendous.
That would be far out.
The gathering of the bighorn rams occurs in late September to mid-October. The rams are then in their best physical condition, and they interact extensively, and this reaches a maximum during the rut or mating season. In early November, the rams disband and move to their respective rutting areas. Rams that travel together will not fight each other. When the first snow drives strange rams through this set area and mixes the rams, then the battle occurs. And these are dominance fights. They are really something to see. The biggest ram is not necessarily the leader. He's establishing his dominance, and only indirectly is he leading. The young ram's greatest quality is character. The sad part, in a way, is that if a ram grows well and is a beautiful animal with large horns, he will also die early. He pays a heavy price, for when he becomes dominant and large at 8 years of age, that year during the rutting season, he's going to lose his fat deposits because he will not feed. He will spend all his time guarding one female after another when she comes into heat, and he loses a lot of energy, not just chasing females, but chasing other rams away and in fighting. He bankrupts himself. He goes into winter without that important fat load, whereas the other rams that he keeps from breeding, that he keeps from fighting, maintain their fat load and survive. But it is the survival of the fittest, because he does the breeding. The fittest is the one that breeds most, not the ram that lives longest. The bighorn is an endangered species in the United States because the home range knowledge of the sheep, transmitted from generation to generation, has been lost. The sheep have been exterminated from good areas or driven off to poor areas, and there was no one to take them back or to take them away to new grazing lands. The young animals don't know where the good country is. I described to Tommy how the Game and Fish Commission in Wyoming had done a tremendous job in increasing the herds and physically transplanting the animals hundreds of miles across the state from the Whiskey Basin to richer areas. They started the Whiskey Basin Range in the middle 50s when they noticed they had very few newborn lambs surviving in the area. Maybe 6 lambs to every 100 ewe would come through at the end of the winter. This failure was due to a lack of winter range, and winter range is a secret to big game animals. The commission needed land, and they set out the hard cash in 1954 for the land which they called the Whiskey Basin Winter Range. Additional land was given to the commission by the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service, especially in the critical rim areas. At first, the land was so badly overused by domestic livestock, horses particularly, as well as heavy game, that they asked for additional range to be reserved for the sheep. Then they approached private landowners and asked them if they would help reserve some of the private land for sheep, and all of this added up to 3,400 acres. The sheep population began to increase, growing to 30 or 50 newborn lambs per 100 ewes in recent years. The animals really responded to the extra protection and new forage. Now the problem in Wyoming is to control the herd because they have so many sheep, and they have decided that trapping and transplanting of the excess animals is the successful system of sheep management. In the Whiskey Basin, they set traps every winter in early December, and they try to capture as many animals as they can during the winter period and move them to areas of Wyoming where they ancestrally had mountain sheep or supplement herds that are not very large. They move about 60 sheep, ewes, and rams each winter. The floor of the enclosure is covered with alfalfa hay, as well as salt to bait the animals. When they have the number of animals in the trap that they want and approximately the sex ratio they want for transplanting, they release the gates from an observation point about a mile away by triggering an electrical switch. The area they use is one of the few places in the state where you can drive trucks up close enough to load the sheep. After a few hours, the men go in to handle them. Next, the sheep are led into crowding pens, and the men go in, circle the animals, and physically force them down into the smaller pen and from there out through this chute. They are one of the easiest animals to handle because they're so intelligent. The Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep has a surprisingly long gestation period of 175 days. And because it has to cope with such a very long mountain winter, it has adapted itself to produce only one young each year, of a decent size and body weight to last over this long period. And this is really tough. What we are faced with in the United States today is a small relic of the original sheep population. We still have vast areas of relatively good sheep habitat, but no sheep will go there. The unique characteristic of the bighorn is that they build up their population, stabilize at the carrying capacity of the area they happen to exploit, and they don't go from there.
Ready?
Ready.
Get the numbers off the page. What was the last?
The bighorn are then caught one at a time and processed and given an inoculation and then loaded into boxes constructed on the back of the pickup trucks. 4 to 8 in each truck are driven directly to the new site. The theory in Wyoming is that wildlife should be given a priority as a user of habitat, especially in the critical areas, if only because they generate so much revenue. Hunting and fishing is calculated to be a $100 million a year business in the state. And in this realistic way, the Commission has made wildlife habitat competitive. The final problem in the states for the Rocky Mountain bighorn is people. Not so much from hunting alone, but interference by hiking parties, tourists, and helicopters, or other machines who continually disturb the animals, crawling after them and harassing them without necessarily wanting to. But the rams are chased from the good land to the cliffs and to the poor areas, and then with no range left for the females to produce healthy youngsters, the population dies out. Finally, the animals are released, and the sheep jump out and hopefully go up and accept their new home. After I told Tommy the story, he wanted to know if I had written a song about the place, and I told him I had indeed. It's a special kind of medicine, and all that you can do is win. And though the taste is sweet, you can't refuse. Put your heart on the table and fill your cup with moonshine, another empty case of the Whiskey Basin Blues. When two rams meet, each treats each other as if it were a female, which to the ram is an intolerable situation. It's an insult. They both insult each other, and the two rams begin to fight, the smaller one generally attacking. The smaller one will use every dirty trick in the book to gain a tactical advantage. First, standing on his hind legs to gain momentum at the start, or going up on a hill, pretend to eat, then to rush downward with great speed for the clash, like that. The big ram also acts out a ritual in battle by not facing the contender, pretending he is eating and ignoring the other guy, only to spin around and catch the blow. The other behavioral trait in battle is that if two rams are clashing, a third ram will take the side of the larger if he is smaller and if he has had a grudge against the second largest. Also, when a ram is defeated, Tommy remarked how he has seen smaller animals go and take advantage of him. The force of the blow is accepted by the ram with a broad nuchal tendon that connects the backbone to the skull. It is his great shock absorber, And if ever this cannot withstand the blow, all the mountain sheep has to do is to lift its hind legs off the ground and sail backwards. There, you see it. Wow, what a wallop. Then, after the blow is delivered in battle, the rams will freeze and twist their heads to display their horns and look at each other, almost as if to catalog the size of the horns that delivered that blow. The bighorn are characters, each and every one. They are very, very individualistic, and you have amongst them cowards as much as you have in human societies, and you have little individuals who keep on striving despite their size, and you have the calm, silent big fellow who does everything in a crack, the ram that rules the rock, breeds at will, and gets away with it. They never get excited. They're always calm and cool. The ram's skin is very tough over the frontal nose bone, but if the skull plate and brain were right behind it, when they clashed in battle, their mind would be blown, blasted. So there is 1.5 inches of air with supporting plates above the lower bone which covers the skull. It is just like wearing a helmet. It offers the same protection when they bang heads. And just before they reach one another, the neck is propelled downward, and just 1 inch or so before they hit, the ram suddenly flicks his horns forward, so he's adding the forces of propulsion, of gravity of neck movement, and of the head throw to produce the hardest possible blow with one horn only, and one edge only. There. That's where the great force comes. And the second horn smashes right after, but it is the slash of the one edge of that first horn, like a karate chop, that does the damage. Beautiful. Up in a meadow in Jasper, Alberta, 2 men and 4 ponies on a long, lonesome ride to see the high country and learn of her people, the ways that they live there, the ways that they die. And one is a teacher and one a beginner, just wanting to be there, wanting to know. And together they're trying to tell us a story that should have been listened to long, long ago. On those final days in the Northern Rockies, I experienced that exhilaration that happens only once in a lifetime, when you really see the absolute majesty of the Rocky Mountains. See in the stillness of the soft light of sundown the unending timeless strength and grandeur of these mountains, whose story goes back into time 1,000 million years, which I guess is where eternity begins. And up through time, 75 million years ago, when the unrest on the ocean floor caused the great thickness of rocks to rise above the sea in this great range, from the Arctic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. I better understood after my travels with Tommy Tompkins the country and the wildlife, especially the bighorn. The ram will remain the image of survival, a reflection of the strength of these mountains. I understood the seasons and the life cycle of all the animals and their relationship to each other. I understood more deeply what my relationship was to the animals in the wild. Peace, let it be.